There are undoubtedly many unusual things in the cosmos, but what if the strangest and most mysterious thing we are aware of is much stranger than we thought? What is it? Find out in today's episode. When I was a child, I first learned about Bertrand Russell's floating teapot in the solar system. You know, the one that you can and can't say doesn't exist? I remember thinking, wow, the universe couldn't get any stranger than this at the moment. Yet when I got older, I discovered a lot of other things that are unquestionably stranger than a floating teapot. There are magnetars, binary stars eating one another, and a mysterious force that drags items into the Laniakea supercluster's center, among other things. A teapot drifting around just past Pluto seems more normal at this stage. Today, I'd like to discuss white holes, another enigmatic relative of planets and stars. Now I understand. I realize the name sounds completely fictitious and made up, but I promise this will be worthwhile of your time. Kant, one of the most brilliant people who has ever lived, claimed that we can only understand anything in relation to something else that we already know. For instance, early people utilized reptiles as a point of comparison when describing what a dragon is. And while the outcome is a wholly imaginary monster by today's standards, it undoubtedly inspired many fantastical and wacky tales. Now, drawing on that idea, let's contrast it with the object that best describes its nature in order to better comprehend what white holes are. Let's contrast it with black holes to see how they are similar to and distinct from one another. Alright, now that our plan is in place, why don't we begin by defining a white hole in the most basic terms possible? A white hole is, in the most basic sense, the complete antithesis of a black hole. Literally, in a sense. I'll explain. If you remember correctly, one of the most basic definitions of a black hole is an object in space from which nothing, not even light, can escape. Even information, which was previously believed to be the sole thing that could not be broken apart, would shatter within a black hole. How powerful is that, even in the slightest? In that case, why don't you check out our feature on black holes after watching this video if you can? Well, then what exactly is a white hole if that is a black hole? An item or area in space where nothing can stay. If that's your response, you came pretty darn close, but not quite. Interesting analogy, though. Consider observing a roadside open manhole where water is entering. You can lay a small object on a strong current and it will instantly be drawn in, right? It's comparable to the black hole. Imagine diving underneath and emerging with water pouring onto you as you stare directly up at the manhole. It will appear as though everything is just going to fall into place without any resistance. You can think about a white hole's operation in this way. A white hole is essentially an area of space where nothing can ever enter from the outside. The fact that matter and light can only emerge from it is the only thing that is certain. Just picture how dazzling white holes might be. And given the radiation present, labeling it a white hole could be an oversimplified. Do you remember what the event horizon is, and that is another thing that these two universal twins have in common? The event horizon of a black hole is the area surrounding it where, once an object enters, there is no turning back. Any object passing through this zone will be unable to escape. But how is it set up for white holes if that is the case for black holes? As it has been proven that they are opposite entities, the area surrounding a white hole into which nothing can ever enter is said to be its event horizon. Okay, alright, let's put it more clearly. As nothing can genuinely enter a white hole, it would be more accurate to state that once something leaves one, it cannot return. The fact that both black and white holes have a singularity adds to the list of similarities between them. Do you still recall what a black hole's singularities are, then? As we know that time behaves differently in a black hole, the singularity is the black hole's densest point, where any object that enters the event horizon finally, for lack of a better word, becomes crushed, squeezed, and zapped into the black hole. By analogy, the singularity of a white hole is where light and matter escape, and doing so there simply violates the second rule of thermodynamics. I'm aware of your thoughts at this point. I thought this was a video on astronomy, so why are we talking about thermodynamics and entropy? Please bear with me. I assure you that this is one of the coolest aspects of a white hole. In every closed system, entropy can only increase, according to the second rule of thermodynamics, if you'll recall. Entropy has historically been used incorrectly to denote disorder in everyday speech. It's not incorrect, but it should be put more clearly. The amount of possible states that an object can be in is a better definition of entropy. For instance, if you have a set of 6 dice, you can roll them in any of 6 possible situations. Well, let's come up with an illustration that will eventually relate to black holes and white holes. But first, why don't you hit the like button to let us know what you think of the show, and if you enjoy viewing videos about this subject, click the subscribe button. We post videos to the channel frequently about everything interesting. Consider blending an apple smoothie. After gathering some apples, you turn on the blender. You add other components, such as milk, ice cubes, and sugar, for example. After you turn on the blender, your smoothie will be ready in a few minutes. You can now attempt to piece together the apple or ice fragments to possibly create an apple or ice cube, but this will never be the same mixture of materials as before. Before you can turn the components into a smoothie, they must be in a very particular condition to be able to return to their original material state. The second rule of thermodynamics is broken if you just throw that back into the mixer and expect it to run backwards. The white holes defy this by decreasing entropy, and at some point you could even say that they are black holes traveling backward in time if black holes are the blenders of the universe, raising entropy by an unthinkable amount. Are white holes genuinely traveling back in time, then, must be the question on everyone's mind right now. The simple response is a resounding yes for someone who studies general relativity. The notion that time is a constant and final reference is rejected in this field that Albert Einstein invented. If that's the case, then turning in the opposite way shouldn't be a problem. At the very least conceptually. It's a shame, but I suppose that last statement pretty much gives away what a white hole really is, don't you think? White holes are now only possibilities that exist on paper, despite the fact that it would be much more fantastic to observe and study one. But hey, keep in mind that at one point, people also believed black holes to be entirely hypothetical. Now look at where we are. We witness it consume enormous items and encounter references to it in various works of popular culture. Nowadays, it's nearly impossible to encounter someone who has never heard of a black hole. I suppose I'm trying to convey that it might just be a question of time. The future? That being the case, why do we claim that white holes are purely theoretical? First off, everyone is aware that the cosmos, or at least how we perceive it to function, loves to follow conservation laws. Indeed, there have been cases where some phenomena seem to defy this law, but these occurrences are frequently incredibly unstable and endure only a few seconds or even a small portion of it. Even if one were to appear out of nowhere, it would naturally collapse in on itself and transform into a black hole. There is one incident, though, that we might consider to be the first ever observation of a white hole, despite the fact that it is absurdly theoretical. On June 14, 2006, a massive gamma-ray burst that lasted only a little bit longer than 100 seconds was observed in the night sky. According to scientists, the energy that emerged from it may have been several orders of magnitude more powerful than our sun. With so much energy, just think of the power you could produce. Astronomers initially hypothesized that this could just be a star collapsing into itself and creating a black hole. Okay. Quick quiz. What signs do dying massive stars display as they approach their unavoidable demise? They do indeed display a supernova. Also, given the length of time this item was present, a supernova would be the only plausible explanation. Yet when the photographs started, there was nowhere to be seen where a supernova might have been. It came, lingered for a moment, and then disappeared entirely, like a lovely dream. Of course, we are not claiming that it could only be a white hole. There are further hypotheses as well. For instance, some claim that the radiation may come from a neutron star that is slowly being consumed by a black hole. It might be the result of two neutron stars merging and ejecting powerful waves of energy. They are all excellent contenders, but the fact is that these occurrences have already been seen numerous times and rarely persist longer than 3 seconds. We can infer that it is less likely to be any of those events only based on that fact, in my opinion. Nevertheless, we are not arguing that they are white holes, okay? I can't stress this enough. That is not being said. The best candidate we currently have, we can state with certainty, is this one. And while the thought of living in a time when we can eventually see one is incredibly exciting, all we can do in the interim is wait patiently. And you can guarantee that when we do see one, I'll produce a film about it right away and upload it to this very channel. But that's just my opinion. I'm curious what you all think. Do you believe that the object we just stated is a white hole? Do you believe there is another activity that is just as exciting? Do you believe we've found one already? Post your opinions and thoughts in the comments box below to let us know what you think. I personally go over each one every day, and I genuinely like talking to all of you smart people.